let's go ahead and we're just going to review multiplication and division. Our next unit is going to be about exponents, which is about rapidly increasing things. In order to understand exponents, you have to understand multiplication. So the basic idea of multiplication is repeated addition. What that means is that if you multiply something, it is the same thing as repeatedly adding it. So when you multiply, you increase in quantity. So if you continuously add something or repeatedly add something, you increase in quantity. That is the same as multiplying. It is an increase in quantity. The result of multiplication is called your product. So your answer when you multiply two numbers together is a product. Let's look at this example using the apples. So I want you to count how many apples are in the first row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 across. 5 in the first row. Now if you count how many apples are in the first column. 1, 2, 3. So you have 5 across and 3 down. Now if you multiply those two numbers, you know that 5 times 3 equals 15. But let's break it down. Okay, so you can have 3 groups of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, first group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, second group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, third group. If you have 3 times 5, it equals 15. You can go ahead and count and see that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You have a total of 15 apples, but it can be grouped differently. 3 groups of 5, because you multiplied 5 3 times, you increase your quantity of 5 to 15. Now, you can think of multiplication as a way of grouping. Just like we had 3 groups of 5, you can break it down the opposite way and have 5 groups of 3. So there are 3 groups of 3 apples in each group. You have 5 total groups of 3 apples. 5 times 3 equals 15. This is the same as saying you added 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. That also equals 15. So multiplication is a way of grouping, which represents addition. So 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. You added 3 5 times to have a product of 5 times 3 equals 15. So the product of multiplying 3 apples by 5 apples can be found using addition. Each row of apples contains 5 apples. You have 3 rows of apples total, okay? Let's go back to this example. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You add together 5 plus 5 plus 5. 3 groups of 5 totals 15. You still have the same number of apples, you have just grouped it in a different way. So you have 3 rows of apples, and each row contains 5. This can be expressed as 5 plus 5 plus 5, or by 5 times 3. You can represent them 2 different ways because multiplication is the same thing as repeated addition. So you repeated 5 3 times and you added it together. 5 plus 5 plus 5, that is repeated addition. You repeated the number 5 3 times. Or you can say you 5 times 3, which means you multiplied 5 3 times, or you repeated it 3 times. In this example specifically, 5 and 3 are your factors. Factors are numbers that you can multiply together to get another number. If you multiply 5 times 3, you know you get a product of 15. That is how you know they are your factors. Okay, so let's move on from multiplication and let's move forward to division. So division is about splitting things into equal parts or groups. So just like multiplication is about groups, so is division. When you think about multiplication and division, you have to remember that they are inverse operations. That means that they can balance each other out, right? So to undo multiplication, you do division. To undo division, you do multiplication. That means that they are one and the same almost, okay? They are both about grouping things. You have a whole and you can group it separately, okay? So just like multiplication is about grouping, division is about splitting into equal parts or groups. So when you do something that relates to division, okay, you have three important words that you need to remember. You have the dividend. The dividend is the number you are splitting into smaller groups, or the amount that you are going to divide, okay? Then you have the divisor, or the number that you are dividing by. And finally, you have your quotient, which is the answer that you get when you divide your dividend by your divisor. So when you divide one number by the other, you get a quotient. So let's go ahead and look at this example. Okay. In this example, you have a total of 12 marbles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You have 12 marbles total, okay? There are a variety of different ways that you and I could split up these marbles or regroup them, right? If we wanted to regroup them, that's the same as dividing them. You're making your whole, which is 12, into smaller groups, okay? When we were doing multiplication, we were taking smaller groups, adding them together to make them a whole, a bigger number, right? When we talk about division, things are getting smaller. So we're taking 12 marbles and we're gonna break it up into smaller groups. When we were talking about multiplication, we were taking smaller groups and adding them together to make a bigger number, right? We took 5, added it 3 times to make 15. That was multiplication. With division, we're gonna take 12 and break it down into smaller groups, and that is division. So let's go ahead and do this in this example. So let's say you wanted to separate it into groups of 1, okay? You have 12 marbles total. So if you broke that up into groups of 1, you have 12 groups of 1 individual marble. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. One single marble, 12 separate groups, okay? Now, that means that you divided 12 by 1. Any number divided by 1 is equal to itself. So since you had a total of 12 marbles and you divided it by 1, you have 12 separate groups of 1 individual marble. Okay, now let's say we want to go ahead and chunk it into a different way or group it into another way, okay? Let's say you want to do groups of 6. So if I wanted to group my 12 marbles into groups of 6, I would take 6 marbles and 6 marbles. Let's take a look. Okay. If you wanted to group it into groups of 6, you have 2 separate groups of 6 marbles each, right? So in this group, you have 6, and in this group, you have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 in each separate group. You divided 12 by 2, and you have 6 in each of those 2 groups. So, if you would like to separate your marbles into groups of 6, you're going to end up with 2 separate groups. This is represented using the divisor sign, okay, the division sign, your symbol. 12 divided by 2 equals 6. Okay, 12 divided into 2 separate groups equals 6 separate marbles in each group. 12 is your total. 2 is what you divided by. 6 is what is going to be in each individual group. You divide it by 2. That means you split it up into 2 separate groups. That means your total is equal to 6 in each of those 2 groups, okay? Now let's say we wanted to break it up into groups that have 4 marbles each, okay? So if you wanted to separate the marbles into groups of 4, you would have 3 groups of 4. Okay, how many groups? 1, 2, 3. How many marbles in each group? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now that means if I have 12 total marbles, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 3 groups of 4. 12 total marbles divided by 3 groups equals 4 marbles to each group. Let's take this back a notch. Let's do something a little bit different. Okay, if I have 1, 2, 3, 4 marbles in this group and I wanted to make a total of 12 marbles, I would have to replicate this 2 more times to have 3 groups of 4 equaling 12. That is multiplication. Multiplication and division are inverse operations. They can go backwards with each other. So if you know that you have 12 total and you want to break it into 3 groups of 4, that means you can also have 4 marbles. If you wanted to increase to 12, you would have to multiply 4 by 3 or add 4 3 times, because 4 plus 4 equals your total of 12. So just like multiplication, division is just a way of grouping numbers together, grouping objects together, taking things and putting them together into separate chunks or separate groups, dividing things up evenly. Okay, division can also be set up as a fraction. The top number of your fraction, or the numerator, is the number that you are dividing, so the dividend. The bottom number of your fraction, or your denominator, this is the number you are dividing by, or your divisor. We can change our symbol. This means divide, but it also sets up a fraction. 12 is now your numerator. 3 is now your denominator. You're still going to get 4. 12 over 3 equals 4, because if I have 12 over 3, that means I'm dividing 12 by 3 to get my quotient of 4. Okay, so the next unit, like I said, we're going to talk about exponents. Exponents have to do with growing things at a rapid rate and shrinking things at a rapid rate. So when you grow and shrink things at a rapid rate, you have to understand the idea of multiplication and division, okay? So the next thing that we're going to talk about are exponents, but not right now. But what I do want you to think about is, how would you make something grow or increase even more rapidly than multiplication? Or how would you make something shrink even more rapidly than using regular division?